There's a moment in life when the silence between two people speaks louder than any words ever could. You're sitting next to someone, maybe someone you care deeply about, and yet you feel empty, disconnected. Something inside you shifts quietly. A heaviness settles in your chest. Your breath feels shorter, and your thoughts are louder than the conversation. It's not always a dramatic ending or a sudden heartbreak. Sometimes it's the slow, subtle unraveling of something that just isn't meant to stay, and your body knows before your mind is ready to accept it. In Buddhism, we're taught to listen deeply, not just to others, but to ourselves. The Buddha said, "Peace comes from within, do not seek it without." But what happens when your peace starts to disappear in the presence of someone you're tied to? What if the universe, gently but firmly, is trying to steer you away from a relationship that no longer aligns with your path? The signs are always there. The question is, are you paying attention? In today's video, we're going to walk through 8 powerful signs that life, and your own body, will give you when you're not meant to be with someone. These are not about judgment or blame. They're about clarity, self-awareness, and honoring your truth. Each signal is like a soft nudge from the universe, helping you return to balance, to freedom, to yourself. So please don't skip ahead. Every part of this conversation might reflect something you've been quietly feeling. And if this message resonates with you, if it feels like something your heart has needed to hear, there's one small free way you can support this space. Hit the subscribe button. It helps us keep growing this mindful, heartfelt community rooted in presence, compassion, and inner peace. Let's begin. There's something about the body. It knows. Long before your thoughts catch up, long before your logic pieces things together, the body whispers. You're sitting across from someone, maybe sharing a meal or a quiet moment, and suddenly there's this heaviness in your stomach. It's not food. It's not stress from the day, it's something deeper, a kind of tightness, a knot that doesn't have a clear explanation. That's not random, that's your body speaking, and most of us have learned to silence that voice, to push it aside because we don't want to face what it might be trying to say. In Buddhist practice, the body is seen as a gateway to wisdom. The Buddha taught that mindfulness doesn't just live in the mind, it lives in every breath, every sensation, every moment of awareness. So when your gut tightens or your chest feels heavy around someone, that isn't just anxiety or overthinking. That might be clarity trying to reach you from within. Your intuition doesn't scream, it whispers, and it shows up in the form of discomfort that lingers even when things seem okay on the surface. I remember speaking with someone who shared this exact experience. She said, "I don't have a good reason to feel this way around him, but my body always feels off, like I'm bracing for something, even when nothing is wrong." That is not to be ignored. The Buddha said your body is precious. It is your vehicle for awakening. Treat it with care. That doesn't just mean physically, it means emotionally, energetically. Your body is a radar for truth. If being around someone makes you feel like you're shrinking, tensing, or losing your natural rhythm, pay attention. And this isn't about judging the other person. Sometimes two people just aren't aligned. Their energies don't meet in harmony. Their presence doesn't soothe you. It unsettles you. And that's okay. Buddhism reminds us that not everything or everyone is meant to stay. That awareness is not cruelty. It's compassion. Compassion for yourself. There's a certain kind of heaviness that doesn't show up all at once. It builds gradually, like a slow tightening in your chest, or a tension that settles in your shoulders. You brush it off, telling yourself you're just tired, maybe overwhelmed by work or responsibilities. But deep down, your body knows. It always knows. When you're around someone and your body seems to stay in a constant state of tension, shoulders stiff, jaw clenched, muscles tight for no clear reason, that's not random. It's not something to ignore. It's a message, one that your body is gently but persistently trying to send you. You see, in Buddhism there's a deep understanding of how mind and body are not separate. The Buddha taught that the body reflects the state of the mind and the mind reflects the state of the body. So when your body is carrying tension, especially around specific people or in specific relationships, it's often because your mind is feeling unsafe, even if you haven't consciously realized it yet. It's like your body is staying on guard, bracing for something. Maybe it's the way they talk to you, the subtle jabs, the unpredictable moods, or maybe it's the unspoken pressure to constantly please them or be someone you're not. And that tension, it wears you down. You might notice that after spending time with this person, you feel mentally foggy or emotionally raw, maybe even physically sore. That's not just stress, it's your body protecting you, holding everything tight because on some level it doesn't feel safe to let go. And it's not just about physical harm. Emotional misalignment, chronic misunderstanding, or even just unspoken resentment can be enough to keep your nervous system in a low-level state of alert. The Buddha often reminded us that the path to liberation begins with awareness. We can't change what we refuse to acknowledge. So if your body is constantly tense around someone, ask yourself, what is this tightness trying to protect me from? And more importantly, what would it feel like to be in the presence of someone who allows your body to relax, your shoulders to drop, your breath to deepen? There's a kind of tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. You go home after spending time with someone and instead of feeling full or content, you feel empty. Not just physically, but emotionally, like you've been pouring from a cup that never gets refilled. You might not even notice it at first. You tell yourself you're just busy, or maybe it was just a long day. But then it starts happening consistently. Each time you're with that person, something in you feels drained. That quiet exhaustion, that's not random, it's a message, and it's important to listen. In Buddhist teachings, energy is not just physical, it's deeply connected to our emotional and spiritual state. The Buddha spoke about right association, encouraging us to be mindful of the people we share our energy with. Relationships should nourish our inner peace, not take us further from it. When someone consistently leaves you feeling depleted, it's not a reflection of your weakness, it's a reflection of an imbalance. Their presence may not be aligned with your path anymore. Sometimes people are not intentionally draining. They might be lost in their own suffering, projecting their fears, or depending on you to fill a void only they can heal. But whatever the reason, the impact on your well-being matters. If you constantly feel like you're walking on eggshells, managing someone else's emotions, or holding space without receiving any in return, it's not sustainable. Emotional one-sidedness has a cost, and that cost is often your peace. In Buddhism, one of the most powerful teachings is the concept of upekkha, equanimity. It's about finding balance, even in relationships. Equanimity means learning to love without losing yourself. And that means recognizing when your energy is being consumed instead of reciprocated. You can have compassion for someone and still choose to protect your own spirit. That's not unkind, that's wisdom. There's something unsettling about a pounding heart that doesn't come from love or excitement, but from stress. It's that strange rhythm you feel when you're sitting next to someone and your chest tightens. Not because you're falling deeper into connection, but because something inside you feels off. Your body starts whispering what your mind might not be ready to admit. This doesn't feel safe. And not in a dramatic, dangerous way, but in that subtle, quiet way that tells you you're not at ease. Your heart races, your breath shortens, and it feels like you're bracing yourself without even knowing why. The Buddha often reminded his followers that the mind and body are not separate. In fact, when the mind is disturbed, the body reflects it, and vice versa. So when your heart speeds up around someone, and not in a joyful or expansive way, it may not be love you're feeling, it may be a warning. In Buddhist teachings, this is where mindfulness becomes essential. Being mindful doesn't just mean sitting in meditation. It means tuning in, noticing what your body is telling you without judgment or suppression. When your heart reacts strongly in someone's presence, ask yourself what lies underneath that physical response. Is it fear? Is it a deep, unspoken tension that builds every time you're near them? Maybe it's the pressure of pretending to be okay when you're not, or the anxiety of walking on eggshells hoping to avoid conflict. These feelings don't come from nowhere. They're the result of energy your body is picking up on, often long before your logical mind has processed it. In Buddhism, we're taught to honor reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. If your body reacts with alarm every time you're around someone, that's not something to brush aside. It's an invitation to pause and investigate. The heart is often our first compass, and while it can sometimes lead us into messy places, it also knows how to steer us out. There's something very telling about the way we breathe around certain people. You might not notice it at first, it's subtle, but over time you start to feel it. That tightness in your chest, the way your breath gets shallow, or how you suddenly sigh a little too often without knowing why. It's like your body is trying to create space when someone else's presence is taking too much of it. And this isn't just about anxiety, it's about energy. The Buddha taught that the body and mind are not separate. They are intimately connected, and what disturbs the mind shows up in the body. Breathing is one of the first places that reflection appears. Now think about the people in your life who make you feel safe. When you're with them, your breath flows naturally. You're not holding anything in, not your words, not your emotions, not even your physical tension. You feel lighter. But when you're with someone who feels off or unaligned with your path, the breath becomes your quiet messenger. You might hold it without realizing. You might speak with shorter sentences or feel like you can't get a full inhale. That's not a coincidence. It's your inner wisdom trying to tell you something doesn't feel quite right. In Buddhism, mindfulness of breath is one of the most powerful practices. The Buddha taught anapanasati, awareness of inhaling and exhaling, as a doorway to understanding ourselves deeply. And here's the beautiful part. Your breath is always honest, it doesn't lie. So when it changes in the presence of someone, when it becomes strained or shallow, pause and ask yourself why. What are you protecting yourself from? What part of you is holding back? That moment of noticing is a moment of awakening. Some people bring out our natural breath, our calmness, our stillness. Others bring out a version of ourselves that is anxious, guarded, unsure. If you consistently find yourself unable to breathe freely around someone, take it seriously. Your breath is the pulse of your inner world, and if it starts to feel disrupted, it's time to listen. The universe, through the rhythm of your body, might be whispering, "This connection is not aligned with your peace," and in Buddhism, peace is not a luxury, it's the path. It's a strange thing when your thoughts start feeling cloudy around someone you care about. You might catch yourself second-guessing your words, forgetting simple things, or constantly overthinking what just happened in a conversation. It's not that you've suddenly lost your clarity, it's that something about this connection is pulling you out of alignment. And the truth is, your mind and heart are not at ease when a relationship is out of sync with your deeper truth. In Buddhism, clarity of mind, what's called samadhi or right view, is essential for peace. When we are connected to people who align with our path, our minds naturally feel calmer, more focused, and more present. But when we're tied to someone who isn't meant to walk with us, our inner stability starts to wobble. The confusion doesn't come from a lack of love or effort. It comes from the internal conflict between what we feel and what we know. Deep down, you might be sensing something is off, but your mind is trying to protect you from that truth. This mental fog can show up in small, subtle ways, like struggling to concentrate, doubting your own instincts, or constantly feeling unsure about what you want. You might find yourself overanalyzing their behavior, replaying conversations, or trying to justify things that don't sit right with you. This isn't just overthinking. It's your intuition trying to break through the noise. Your mind is working overtime because your heart is in resistance, and that kind of dissonance creates internal chaos. The Buddha taught that suffering often arises from clinging, tanha, especially when we cling to ideas, people, or expectations that don't reflect reality. And when a relationship is no longer serving your growth, your mind will start sending signals. Confusion is often the first one. It's not a weakness, it's a message, a call to return to clarity, to pause and listen deeply. There's a strange pull that starts to grow when something deep within us begins to shift. You might not be able to explain it clearly, but it's there. That quiet urge to be somewhere else, to talk to different people, to experience something that feels lighter, freer, more like you. And often it happens when you're stuck in a relationship that no longer reflects your true self. You start noticing the way your heart lifts when you're away from that person, how conversations with someone new feel easier, how different environments suddenly feel more peaceful. That pull, it's not random, it's guidance. Buddhism teaches us that we're not fixed beings. We are always changing, always evolving. The Buddha spoke of anicca, or impermanence, as a central truth. When a relationship tries to keep you frozen in a version of yourself you've outgrown, suffering follows. But the universe, in its quiet wisdom, often shows us a way out, not through force, but through gentle curiosity. You begin to feel drawn to things that align more closely with who you're becoming, not who you were. This subtle attraction to new people or places doesn't necessarily mean you're being unfaithful or disloyal. It's your inner world expanding, whispering, there's something more out there for you. Maybe it's a new friend who sees you differently, who listens without judgment and makes you feel seen in a way you didn't realize you were missing. Or maybe it's a quiet walk in a place you've never visited before, and something in that stillness feels like home. That's your intuition awakening. That's your energy reaching for something your soul needs. The Buddha encouraged us to follow the middle path, the way of balance, awareness, and personal truth. So when you start feeling this shift, don't suppress it. Sit with it. Listen to it. Ask yourself honestly, why does this new space feel better? What part of me is it nourishing? Sometimes the attraction to new people or environments is not about escape. It's about remembering yourself, about honoring your evolution, and gently stepping into a life that reflects your present, not your past. There comes a point when you just feel like your emotions are on a roller coaster, and not the fun kind. One moment you're holding on to hope, the next you're anxious, then sad, then angry, then numb, and around it goes. It's like the relationship has become a constant source of internal chaos. You're not sure if you're coming or going, and no matter how many times you try to fix things, talk things out, or give it one more chance, the peace you're craving just doesn't come. That's not love anymore, that's emotional survival. The Buddha spoke clearly about suffering, dukkha, and its causes. One major cause, he said, is attachment, not love itself, but the clinging to something even when it brings us pain. When we become attached to how things should be or how we wish someone would change, we start to suffer in silence. We live in our minds trying to make sense of the confusion, and we ignore what our hearts already know. That's where emotional chaos comes from, when our inner world is trying to protect us, but we keep overriding it because we don't want to lose something we've already outgrown. It's important to know that love should feel grounding, not destabilizing. Yes, every relationship has its ups and downs, but when the downs start to outnumber the ups, when you're constantly walking on emotional eggshells, second-guessing your worth or trying to prove your value, that's not love, that's imbalance. And Buddhism reminds us, true love begins with loving kindness, starting with ourselves. If being with someone costs you your peace, it's too expensive. This kind of chaos isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a subtle drain, a constant hum of anxiety or self-doubt that doesn't go away. It might look like sleepless nights, trouble concentrating, or even losing interest in things that once made you feel alive. That's not just stress. It's your body and soul waving a flag, saying, something's not right here. So ask yourself gently but honestly, is this connection nourishing me or depleting me? Do I feel like myself when I'm around this person, or do I feel like I'm constantly trying to be someone else to hold it all together? The truth is, the universe never punishes us with endings. It offers them as turning points. And sometimes, emotional chaos is the final and clearest signal, not because you failed, but because you've finally outgrown what was only meant to be a chapter, not your whole story. As the Buddha said, let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present. With a heart that is free, cross over to the farther shore. That farther shore is peace, and you are allowed to choose it. Sometimes the loudest wisdom comes in silence, the kind that rises when we finally stop forcing what isn't meant for us. If your heart feels heavy, let this be your reminder. You are not here to chase love that confuses you or shrink yourself to be accepted. You are here to return to peace, to clarity, to your own truth. The universe will never take something away without offering something deeper in return, especially when you're brave enough to let go. If this message touched something within you, don't stop here. One of the videos on your screen right now might be the next step your soul has been waiting for. Watch it, and keep walking this path of awareness and compassion. Thank you for being a part of our Buddhist journey. Your presence in this space means more than you know. Until next time, may your heart stay light, your spirit grounded, and your path filled with peace.